Happy post-trade deadline. We have another episode of the Remy podcast with me as normal, Remy, and then also Lord Matthew is back from wrestling Meth Gators.
Yep, a lot of them.
All the Meth Gators.
They're all gone.
And our senior Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican correspondent.
Caribbean, I guess.
Caribbean.
Buenos dias, señores.
That's all the Spanish he knows.
He's very bilingual and otherwise. So we had a very busy trade deadline, not in the way that a lot of teams kind of were assuming that would be. The first year of the single trade deadline. And to go into every single trade and every detail would kind of take us forever. And as much as we love to talk and go on and on, we will spare you that. And I kind of boiled things down to a top 10 of moves and non-moves and things like that. And we'll kind of go into those, and we'll get Ruben and Matt's reactions and thoughts and feelings and innermost contemplative thoughts.
I'm intrigued.
I dream about trade deadlines.
Ruben's already bankrupt on that. We're going to kind of compile two teams to number 10, and kind of our normal dumpster fire of the week will basically be that 10 spot. And the two teams in that 10 spot are going to be the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees for their inaction and just general wasting of my life. With the Red Sox, the Indians, A's, and Rays were all ahead of them in the wild card. So they have an opportunity. The only glaring issue they really have is their bullpen and some minor moves. I mean, they talked about getting maybe Edwin Diaz from Ruben's beloved Mets. They did nothing. And then, according with an interview with MLB from Mark Feisand, Dave Dombrowski was basically saying the reason he didn't want to do anything is, one, they didn't really have the pieces to do anything. They have one of the worst rated farm systems in the entire league. And then Dave Dombrowski was basically saying the team hasn't proven itself consistent enough to warrant him making any kind of moves or trades.
Did he really say that?
He absolutely did.
For the World Series defending champion, he said that.
Yes.
That's a bullshit move right there.
That is ballsy. In terms of the Yankees, I was wanting to punch holes through walls on trade deadline day, but different reporters, John Heyman said the D-backs were asking for Clint Frazier, Clark Schmidt, and other prospects for Robbie Ray, who, I will be honest, is not much better than James Paxton, so I'm not really a rotation changer. And I'm going to butcher this man's name from the New York Times, but Bob Clappish, he said that the Mets were willing to flip Marcus Stroman to the Yankees, but they wanted Deivi Garcia, who's their number one prospect, one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, and their prized outfield prospect, Estevan Florial, plus maybe two or three other prospects. And the Yankees
For Marcus
Stroman, who I did want. That was the number one person I wanted. We'll get to Stroman a little bit later on the show. Brian Cashman basically did not want to pay those prices, so to speak,
the exorbitant prices,
and said that the reinforcements in Luis Severino and Dylan Betances and the 9,000 other freaking Avengers Endgame scene rushing into the movie out of the freaking portals to come reinforce.
Hey man, spoilers.
It's coming out. It's coming out on Blu-ray. But that imagery will rain down upon Yankee Stadium, over the next 2 months as they get those guys back.
So you're saying that there's a 1 in 14 million chance that it's going to work out for you guys?
Yes, I am. So we know my feelings on it. Since some of it impacts Rubes will get you to kind of what are your thoughts on these two teams' inactiveness, non-moves?
Well, I'm you already caught wind of this. I'm amazed by Dombrowski. I should call him Dombrowski. That's a shitty thing to say to a defending World Series champion who hasn't tanked the season. They're just not as good as expected. But things flip around real quickly, and they only have what is it, an 18-year track record now of being ultra competitive. Like, that's a shitty thing to say.
You don't think that throwing Nathan Eovaldi and his rubber arm to the pen is good enough?
Yeah. But I'm good. I heard the Cashman quotes earlier, and people are trying to get exorbitant prices for talent, and I think sabermetrics is changing the game. People know that they can't give up on premium talent, especially if they're requesting for a lot.
I rolled simply because I think it was 2016. The Yankees were sort of 7 games up on the Toronto Blue Jays, and they I think their big deadline acquisition. Matt, we were in Chicago when this happened.
You were watching it.
Yeah, Dustin Ackley was their big deadline acquisition, and they watched the Blue Jays zoom past them and end up winning the AL East that year. Sometimes, and Matt, you are far smarter than I with the numbers. Sometimes you have to look past that and do a gut feeling in terms of, we could win a world championship this year. We got to do something more than numbers dictate. I do think, though, the prospects being asked for some of this for some of these players was too much for how much they may impact a team.
I agree. I think a lot of it has to do with, and I'm wondering if this is part of the reason they did it this way, is because you have your single trade deadline now. You don't have the August 31st date anymore. So teams are asking for more. They're expecting more in return for their players because they don't have that kind of fallback trade deadline to go to. And like Ruben was saying, you have these extensive statistics and numbers to pull off of. They know what their players are worth, what they're capable of worth, and they also know what the teams are going to need and what they really need to compete, especially in the American League. That is an ultra-competitive league compared. The National League's pretty much locked up other than the NL Central, but the AL is pretty wide open for the most part. So a lot of teams made moves, which we'll talk about later. But I think that's partly why people are asking for so much. Is just you have your single trade deadline, and they know what they know what teams are going to need.
That's very true. We will bust along to number 9. I put the LA Dodgers, and the reason I have them at 9 is they were not as active as many thought they would be, and they came to as close of doing nothing.
Well, they didn't need to really do anything.
Their bullpen was a big question mark. The bridge to get to Kenley Jansen.
Sure.
They didn't. Most teams were asking, going back to being asked for a king's ransom. Most teams asked them for their top prospect, Gavin Lux, who's kind of a highly sought after second baseman, shortstop.
He's hitting like .430 in AAA right now.
He is beastly. I mean, that was one of they were heavily linked to the Pirates.
I would give a big middle finger for anybody who wasn't offering short of like Jacob deGrom or Mike Trout.
Well, the Pirates, they have Felipe Vasquez, who was heavily sought after by the Dodgers, and that's apparently was the breaking point, allegedly.
Could you imagine trading like a top positional prospect that looks like generational talent for a reliever as like volatile as relief pitching is today?
No, it wouldn't make any sense. But the moves they did make, they traded somewhat starter reliever guy, lefty Tony Cingrani. I remember him from the Reds. To St. Louis, they got utility infielder Jed Gallardo, who's apparently on the 60-day or IL, I should say, but coming back soon. And they got Adam Kolarek, the lefty reliever from the Tampa Bay Rays, for an outfield prospect. He's got a 3.95 ERA, and he's been holding lefties to a 187 average. I've seen Kolarek plenty of times up close with the Yankees playing the Rays. He is good-ish. I think he helps the bullpen, obviously, but I don't think I don't see either of those moves putting him over the top, really.
Well, I mean, they're kind of running away with the National League anyway. I mean, even with their bullpen in that state, they really didn't need to make a lot of moves.
Yeah.
They're calling up a lot of players. They got a Gingergaard coming up today. He's pitching tonight.
I heard about him.
So, and
Dustin May.
Yeah, Dustin May. So he's going to be. They're talking about him. Even if he's not going to be your 1, 2, 3 starter, he'll be probably pitching relief innings in the postseason and stuff. So
yeah,
I mean, they really. If there was any team that did not have to make any moves, it was the Dodgers.
Yeah, they did. They're doing terribly as co-World Series favorites right now.
Right. So we don't feel too much sympathies for them.
Not
so
really.
That's why I put them low. They didn't address things because they were always great as is, but you would want to see them solidify something maybe. But like you said, not much to worry about. Dustin May could be slotted.
Of all the teams you can let slide for not doing anything, I would say it's the Dodgers.
Number 8 on the list may or may not surprise, and it has more to do with what they gave up than what they acquired. I put the Arizona Diamondbacks at number 8, and the main reason for doing that, and what I thought was a smart move for them, is they jettisoned a huge contract. They jettisoned Zach Greinke's contract, and then just to kind of give some stability back to the rotation, they got Mike Leake from the Seattle Mariners for an infield prospect. They're only going to pay Leake $6 million. He signed through next year. He's a home run prone pitcher.
It's an understatement.
But he usually can give you some length, and in all honesty, that's probably all the Diamondbacks really need right now. We're going to obviously talk much more about the Greinke deal, but that was something that the Diamondbacks needed to get out from under in order to kind of better their team. They've had some years where they've been competitive. Obviously, they've been in the playoffs, mostly obviously as a wild card team. But they've been on the cusp of doing some real things, and I think this deadline, shedding that role, or setting that contract, I should say, best positions them for the future. So I thought that was a good trade deadline for the Diamondbacks. Ruben?
I'm a big believer that if you're not going for it now or in the very near future, and I would probably classify that as 2020-21, you've got to start restocking for prospects. So I've been on the Mets for a long time for not doing such things, and but to their credit, they are going to try to compete. That's not the question. So I think Greinke getting prospects, getting a good haul is the right move, and like you said, stabilizing the rotation, because you just can't go out there with the threat of having to put a positional player, into the 7th inning just because you don't have the arms to. Make it through a 20-run game.
Or the Yankees. We threw Romine out there. Gabe's, your thoughts?
Like Ruben said, I think at this point, you're not winning the NL West for sure. It's a log jam in the National League for the wild card. If you have the chance to trade him, especially with a contract like that, they're going to shed a lot of money. They're going to have a lot of room to work with. They got a decent haul from the Astros, so I would do it.
No, I think it was a great move. Number 7 on our list is going to be the AL Central maybe not champions. We've got to wait to see what the Indians do. But the Minnesota Twins, and one of the things that we talked about on the last show, which you guys so graciously not here for, and then also we talked about...
Were we getting drunk again?
Probably.
I don't remember.
But we were talking about relievers, and one team that we talked about giving up a lot of relievers potentially would be the San Francisco Giants, and the Twins did acquire Sam Dyson from the Giants for 3 prospects. Dyson's at a 2.47 ERA. He's at 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's got a 55% ground ball rate, which is excellent. And then they also kind of made a minor move a couple days before the trade deadline in grabbing Sergio Romo, also a former Giant from the Marlins. The Twins needed some stability in their bullpen.
Sure.
And I think even though maybe these 2 moves don't wow anybody or blow anybody's mind, I think they were good moves for a team that one way or the other I do see the postseason in their future.
It's stability is the key there. They have a great offense. Their starting pitching is kind of coming around a little bit, so really the biggest hole for them was that bullpen, and really any move they made would have helped. And Romo's been in the playoffs however many times. Dyson's been in the play. They're proven relief pitchers for sure. So, again, same kind of thing. It's a good move for them. It makes sense to me.
I like it. Rubes?
Good. Good analysis.
Rubes has so much to add towards that. We're going to keep jumping on the reliever train as we head to number 6, which is the Washington Nationals. A little bit more to kind of go on what they added. They got Daniel Hudson from the Blue Jays, lefty reliever. He's got about a 3 ERA in over 48 innings. He has an 81% strand rate coming in with runners on base, and he averages about 1K per 9 innings. He's sort of the biggest relief pitcher they acquired. They also made 2 different trades on deadline day with the Mariners. They got Roenis Elias, a left-handed pitcher, who's a 4.40 ERA, and Hunter Strickland, former Giant as well, right? Yeah.
He's been hurt.
He's been hurt most of this year. They gave up some some questionable minor league talent for these relievers. The Nationals bullpen at various points in time this year has been a dumpster fire in its own right.
Other than Doolittle.
Other than Doolittle, we do have to make that caveat. Rubes, they're in your division. You've seen them a ton. What do you think?
Well, Rosenthal wasn't working out for them with his 24 ERA or so. I mean, it was infinity for a good couple of weeks there. They needed to. They have the worst bullpen ERA in baseball.
Yep.
And
It's like 6 or something.
It's close.
Yeah.
It's like 5.89 and 20 blown saves, which is remarkably not leading Major League Baseball. That would be my New York Mets.
Cubs are right behind you. Don't worry.
Yeah. They needed to do something. Nobody blows your socks off, but you're replacing horrific with adequate.
Yeah.
And they're still, because they've made a nice little charge here. They're second place in the NL East. I think they're the
Up at the wild card.
Yeah.
front runner for the second wild card right now. So they've made a little run, and could you imagine if you're a player on that team, if you're you could be a Turner or a Scherzer, and saying, really, you're not going to give me anything down the stretch with a huge payroll. And the other thing to note, which is really important, is that they're better without Bryce Harper. That has nothing to do with the topic, does it?
No.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
The Phillies are worse with Bryce Harper.
It's amazing what happens, and
When you-
ironically enough, just to lend myself to this topic, DJ LeMahieu, who they signed instead of either of those players, the Yankees did, is outperforming both of them and is a MVP candidate for the American League.
Yeah. Well, the good thing for them is they've only got 12 more years of Harper, so it's not like he's tied into a
Hey, he really wanted to be there. We're going to get to the front half of this list. Honorable mentions for deals. The Cubs made some inroads. Nick Castellanos from the Tigers was a good ad.
He had 2 hits today.
A's got Tanner Roark. And then the Rays made a couple of moves, getting Eric Sogard, and then also...
Sogard's a good pickup.
I like Sogard as a pickup. And then Jesus Aguilar from the Brewers. So those were some honorable mentions. Just going to pass them through. We couldn't get to everybody. We'd love to, but Matt Rubin and I don't want to be here for the next 5 years.
or the next 5 minutes.
Oh.
I don't know what that means.
Ruben honestly has nowhere else to go.
I really don't.
That's horrible.
Warcraft tonight, guys?
No. D&D.
D&D.
Matt and I have high-fived. Nerd bros. Number 5 on this list, continuing with the adding relief to make sure you're not horrible garbage. The Atlanta Braves. They picked up journeyman Chris Martin, who I remember from his time as the Yankees.
And Coldplay.
Oh, you beat me to it.
You and your music jokes. They gave up one of their... He's a good pitching prospect in Colby Allard. Chris Martin's mostly known as a 33-year-old German? Das ist richtig. No, journeyman. Journeyman was what we were looking for. He had bounced back to the league on the Rangers from going over to he was on the Nippon Ham Fighters, which I love that name. From the
who?
Nippon Ham Fighters.
In Japan?
Yeah.
Are you bringing up like World War II?
No, that's the baseball team's name. Martin's bounced back year. He's had a 3.08 ERA. He also has a 43-4 strikeout to walk ratio, which is quite nice.
That's really good.
So that is some nice eye-popping numbers there. From the Giants, they picked up Mark Melancon, who used to be really
closer for the Pirates. He was really good.
Yeah, he was a former Yankee, Pirate. He was great on the Giants.
How many relievers did San Francisco trade away?
All of them. They got two right-handed pitching prospects. Like Matt said, he's been super injured. He signed a $62 million deal in 2017 that he's almost through, but that didn't quite pan out as much as the Giants would have liked. Since 2018, he's had about a 3.38 ERA, not terrible. But the nice thing is, in that time frame, he's only given up 5 home runs. And in 2019, for when he has pitched, he's got a 61.5% ground ball rate, which is pretty eye-popping.
All right.
But the biggest ad for the Braves, they got closer Shane Green from the Tigers for 2 minor leaguers. He's gotten 22 saves this year, 1.18 ERA, 54% ground ball rate, which Atlanta's got a good infield, so that'll do him well. They're just by contrast, their current closer, Luke Jackson, has had 7 blown saves on 24 chances. So this was a big trade deadline for the Braves. Yeah. Ruby, since again we'll default to you as our senior NL East analyst. What do you got?
This is obviously they're clearly in the front runner seat in the division. This is we're serious about making a move in the playoffs. So good for them. I mean, as much as I hate the Phillies and the Nationals, the Braves have a special hold on my heart for the excruciating pain of 13 consecutive division titles. But they're going for it. I saw Shane Green actually pitch in Detroit this year, and he's got great stuff. He's been a reliable reliever for about 4 or 5 years now. They're going for it. Good for them. They do have a great young infield. They have a great young outfield. It's a good team.
Yeah, I like what they did there.
I would not be surprised if they come out of the National League. Wouldn't shock me.
No. I mean, I think they're the expected winners there.
Well, no, the entire National League.
Oh, the East. Do you think they're going to beat the Dodgers?
No, I didn't say that. I said I would not be surprised. So
I think they're the only team that could give them a run for their money. I will say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur with that. I'm going to go to number 4 because I can turn that to Matt since we gave you the NL East there. We're going to give Matt the NL Central momentarily.
Sweet.
The number 4 team on this list, and again, another deal we're going to have to get into later on as well, even though there's not much later on. The Cincinnati Reds. They acquired Trevor Bauer in a 3-team deal with the Indians and Padres. San Diego got their star outfield prospect, Taylor Trammell. This is now a team that they're not contending this year, but this move wasn't for this year. This move was for next year. They're going to be going into a full season with Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Trevor Bauer as their 1, 2, 3, which is a heck of a punch there, man. That's a heck. That team is on the rise. But Matt, you are senior NL Central analyst. You know, seeing them a ton as a Cubbies fan. What is your feel on the Reds here?
I like you said, I think they're playing for next year. They've been deceptively good this year. They've had a positive run differential, even though they've been in pretty much last place the entire year. Their pitching staff is crazy good, and that just solidifies that they're going to have Bauer all next year. Mm-hmm. They're going to probably try to keep them around for longer if they compete next year. I think they will compete next year, honestly. It's a great move. I mean, they traded some people away, obviously, but they're planning for a core group for next year. They already have a decent offense. I mean, yeah, it's a fantastic move.
I see good things in the Red Stockings' future.
Well, plus they traded away somebody who's got a 3-game suspension now too.
Oh God! Oh, and
that was awesome,
Man Bear Puig. Yeah. I will touch on this for the Reds, even though we have nowhere else to work it. I think it works best here. I think the Yankees should have tried to get Amir Garrett from them, not because he's a fantastic relief pitcher, but simply because him running and swinging, kicking, punching 5 Pirates at once is one of the greatest images of the season.
In a time where people hold me back sort of mentality, it's one of the greatest initiations to a brawl in the history of sports. Maybe in the history of mankind. I loved it. That's like the guy going up against the Spartan line and charging.
He is awesome. Amir Garrett, you're welcome on the show anytime. Anytime.
The Pirates are getting a lot of flack for all their antics now too.
Yep.
Well, they're not raising the Jolly Roger anytime soon.
No,
so
they're not.
Number 3 is something Ruben can talk about, and also I can glare at him for. The Mets decided to hijack the entire trade deadline a couple days beforehand by trading for Marcus Stroman for their number 6 and 7 pitching prospects. The New York native Marcus Stroman, known primarily as a ground ball pitcher, added to a team known for terrible infield defense.
Yes.
The Mets were talked about heavily during the trade deadline for maybe moving Noah Syndergaard or Zach Wheeler. They moved no one and nothing. Now they have
Jason Vargas.
Oh, yeah, they moved Jason Vargas to the Phillies. I apologize, I did forget to make note of that.
It's a big move.
For a Double-A catcher hitting less than 200. Sorry.
That's the earth-shattering moves the Mets were expected to make.
Yeah.
But we talked about this with the Reds. We could talk about this with the Mets. The Mets rotation, I mean, they're making a charge of, 4 games back now in the wild card?
Yeah, well, they are. Right now, they're 4 games back, but I think this move was made primarily with 2020 in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
And it might pay dividends for 2019 because they are 4 games back, and I don't know I'm actually kind of excited for the first time since opening day.
So we're proud that Bro Van Wagenen didn't wave the white flag and gave you some hope, or
I gotta say, like, it's hard because I've been an advocate of trading and restocking the minor league systems for a long time. So in this case, apparently they did have Wheeler out there, they did have Thor out there, and they were asking exorbitant prices, and if they weren't met, they walked. And that's actually the right move to make. You put your price out there and you say, you want a piece? No? Okay, I'm keeping on my assets, especially with Thor with 2 years left. Wheeler's a different story because he's a free agent.
Wheeler should have been flipped.
He's a free agent, exactly. But they can still make a qualifying offer and get a draft pick no matter what.
Right, but you would have gotten more no matter what right now.
So I like that he said, here's my price, you meet it or you're gone. And they had all the pitching assets, really, the right-handed pitching assets on the entire market. So what I like about the move is the 2 prospects they gave up are no home runs by any means whatsoever. And apparently, from what I've heard, they're barely, if in the top 100 baseball prospects.
They're not.
And some people say they're not even really top 150. So if you get a guy with 1 year of team control, and you add him to the top of the rotation with DeGrom, Thor, Stroman, potentially Wheeler, and Steven Matz, it's pretty nasty.
That's an insane rotation, but I also I'll ask Matt this, looking at the opposite end. If you're the Blue Jays, I mean, you're getting rid of Stroman.
Sure.
You don't wait to the actual deadline and get a bet. That's the worst. Not for the Mets. For the Mets, That's fantastic.
Could you imagine if they flipped them, though, to the Yankees for better prospects?
I would have punched you in the throat. But still, what the absolute hell are the Blue Jays thinking doing that?
They must have shopped him a little bit. And we're not getting I guess maybe the opposite of what the Mets were doing. They were trying to ship Thor. They're trying to ship Wheeler. They were not getting their demands met, so they walked. Blue Jays, on the other hand, had the same problem, but instead of keeping the asset, they wanted to get rid of him with no matter what. And so the Mets gave him the best offer. By the end of it, it's like, all right, well, let's just do that.
But it was 2 days before.
It was 2 days before.
That's what blows my mind is they didn't wait because as the Bowers fell off the board, as people realized that the Mets were not going to trade Syndergaard or Wheeler,
the demand goes up.
To me, and we'll get to him momentarily. Out of everybody traded, and I guess you could argue between Bauer and Stroman, really.
Yeah.
Stroman was maybe the second best starting pitcher traded in the deadline.
Potentially behind Bauer.
Yeah. No. But that blows my mind. But anyway, we're going to move on to our number 2 team for this trade deadline. And that's the Cleveland Indians. Going back to that 3-team deal with San Diego and Cincinnati. The Indians' main need that was addressed is they needed an outfielder with pop. They added 2 of them, and Yasiel Puig from the Reds and Franmil Reyes from the Padres. They got left-handed pitcher Logan Allen from the Padres, who's more or less a throw-in. They got another lefty pitcher from the Reds, and they got a infielder and prospect from the Padres. The interesting thing here is both of the major league outfielders they acquired are 220-plus home run hitters, and this is the first time ever that a team at the deadline traded for 2 20-plus home run hitters in that span, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I know I explained it kind of wonky. I love it for the Indians. The players they acquired are exactly what they needed. And I mean, they gave up Bauer, but they got the glut of the return. I mean, they went ham. I don't know what better they could have done.
Franmil's going to be good, too. He's going to be hitting home runs for a long time.
I like me some Franmil.
Where do they stand in the wild card chase right now?
They're one of the 3 games back of the Twins in the Central, too.
Yeah, I think they're in the wild card.
They're up there with the Rays and the A's and... yeah, 3 back. I mean,
they're in technically right now.
Yeah, they can still catch. They're probably closer to the Twins, honestly. Oh yeah, they'd be in the playoffs right now, I think.
They're in the. I hate phones. They're the number 1 playoff spot or wild card spot.
There you go.
Them and the Rays are in the wild card.
I guess the only downside to this is that they knew they had to address the outfield in the offseason. They didn't do anything, so they had to resort to trading away Bauer to make that happen.
But they always talked about they have too many pitchers right now.
Sure,
Salazar will be back in a little bit. Kluber will be back in a little bit.
Sure.
They had that depth they could do it, but do want to end the note on the literal last trade of the deadline that came out that just blew everybody's mind and made me somewhat suicidal. The Houston Astros, we'll get to in a second, but we'll look at some of the deals. They got Martin Maldonado from the Cubs because they needed a catcher.
He played with the Astros.
He did. So they were familiar. They gave up Tony Kemp, who's an outfield second baseman.
He's got 82% contact rate, though. Which is what the Cubs need.
They need contact. Under the radar move. I will say this before we get to the main course, so to speak. Yeah. They made an under the radar move, getting Aaron Sanchez and Joe Bigiani from the Blue Jays. Joe Bigiani is a decent reliever. Aaron Sanchez has at various points in time been a good starter, but mostly going to be a reliever.
Especially in that rotation.
But they can use him as a swingman if they need to. Sanchez prefers to start. I think that was honestly a great move before they even freaking acquired Zach friggin' Greinke from the Diamondbacks for 4 of their top prospects, not named Kyle Tucker. They only are going to end up owing about $53 million left on Greinke's gigantimous contract.
I think less than that.
No,
the Diamondbacks are giving like $24 million or something.
2 more years of team control.
Yeah, he's through 2021.
Yep.
Yeah, he's signed through 2021.
For 2.5 years.
Yeah. Greinke, the Astros were not on Greinke's 15-man no-trade list, or 15-team, I should say, sorry. So the Yankees couldn't have blocked this if they wanted to. There was always questions if Greinke could pitch in New York to begin with. But Zach Greinke is out of his mind good. Greinke, Cole, and Verlander are 3 of the top 5 pitchers in WHIP in Major League Baseball, if you didn't know. With Verlander and Greinke 1 and 2 and Cole 5.
Yeah. And Miley's good too.
Miley Cyrus is one. No, I know. Wade Miley. This is a terrifying. If they weren't before the friggin' trade deadline, the Houston Astros are easily the most terrifying team in the American League.
Yeah. I was looking at the stats between your top 3 pitchers now in that rotation combined. Verlander, Cole, and Miley pitched 70 games this year. Their ERA is like 2.2, a WHIP of 0.98 or something. Their strikeout rate is 11.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. And you have to fit, and you could potentially only face those starting pitchers in a best of 5 series.
It's terrible.
That's
the only solace I give myself and the rest of the American League is let us remember the 1996 Atlanta Braves throwing out Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine, and guess what they ended up with? Nothing. So I think the Astros are obviously going to be the favorites. They have every right to be. I don't know what, and I'm frustrated that I wish the Yankees could have done something to combat this, but there was nothing out there to do, and just at the end of the day, the cleaning people behind me were scaring the crap out of me. But at the end of the day, that's a great move by Houston. They have the capacity to do it. Their ownership and their GM really committed to bringing a winning ball club there, and that is a great thing to see for baseball, and especially for Houston fans. So I got nothing against the Astros. I don't begrudge them of anything.
Just jealousy.
Just jealousy at this point. Altuve, Correa, Springer, Bregman, all wonderful players on that team, and we'll see what happens. But next week, gotta have some hiatus because my dad's getting some surgery, so I'm gonna be out taking care of my pops. But in 2 weeks, we'll be back here seeing where we are in the season, and I think we'll take a look at what just for the sake of it, kind of what the playoff picture is in 2 weeks and where we think that's kind of going. Is that a agreeable topic?
Yeah, playoffs.
Wrong sport, same principle.
Yep,
exactly.
No, I think that'll be about the time of year we gotta start. I mean, there's no August 31st deadline, so
there's
nothing
not
else to talk about.
Womp womp. There's always something to talk about. We'll see who does what. We'll see who throws what pitcher throws a ball into center field or what reliever.
That was awesome. I was like, great arm strength.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so if the Reds don't use a pitcher, he's an outfielder.
Yeah. He's got all the moves. We'll do the reverse of the position player pitcher to pitcher position player. We'll or what the Rays did when they subbed a reliever to a first
Oh, yeah.
base. Yeah, that almost was a dumpster fire moment.
Did we have a dumpster fire?
Yeah, this
It's
week
the
we
Red
did,
Sox
and the
and
Yankees
Oh, okay,
for doing nada. Yeah,
Nada.
I
I
would.
would say Bauer throwing the ball, but that was just awesome.
That was
Yeah,
pretty
was
awesome. So, thank you for letting us do this little speed round of trade deadline moves. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Until then, I guess don't start fights with Amir Garrett. I think that's the main.
Unless you're going to counter flailing.
I don't think you start fights with him. He starts fights with you.
Chuck Norris,
Don't
Chuck
provoke.
Norris of baseball.
Do not provoke.
Yeah.
Amir Garrett's tears cure cancer. Too bad he's never cried. All right, thanks everybody.